Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel's Making with Marilyn. Now on my last video, I showed you how I made this tumbler sublimation design in Inkscape. So on this video, I'm going to try a new tumbler press. I'm going to try a tumbler they sent me, and we're going to go through the steps of actually making this. So Sublifun sent me a tumbler press. They sent me 4 sublimation tumblers, and then they sent me 4 of those frosted mason jars. So I'm going to go ahead and move some things around, pull this out of the box. Let's check it out. Now this box is huge, so let's go ahead and open it and see what all's in here. Here's the image that we're going to use, but before I start cutting this, I want to go ahead and clean my tumbler. Now in the box with the 4 tumblers, and I've already looked at these because I did have to measure one, but you got 4 tumblers, and then in each box you have a metal straw and a cleaning brush. And then also in the box, okay, the lid is nice. It's on really tight. And the first thing that I always do before I get started on this project is I go ahead and clean these with rubbing alcohol. Now some people skip this, and it's probably fine, but it just takes a little bit of extra time. It is not a big deal, and I'd just rather be safe than sorry. So I clean that up, and then find a dry place on the paper towel and set it aside. Now I'm going to lay the image right here to cut it. So I also need to make sure this is dry. Now, as I recall, when I designed this, I did not leave much excess space. So I want to cut really tight up against it. But you always have to be sure that on at least one side, either this side or this side, you have absolutely no white paper showing. Otherwise, you're going to get a little white stripe down the seam of your tumbler. Now this other side, I'll probably leave just a small strip of the white for now. All right, you can leave a little bit of white on the bottom because that tumbler, or the bottom of the tumbler, is beveled. I'll show you what I mean when I wrap this. Now the more you leave though, the more potential you have for your paper to kind of pucker and cause some white streaks. So you don't want to leave much, if any. I'm just worried about my image not being large enough. All right, so let's see if I left myself enough space or not. Like I said, I thought I made it pretty tight. Hopefully that's big enough. All right, so I'm going to take my tumbler and I'm going to set it with the top flat down on the table. And then this is the top of my image, so it needs to go down. Oh, that's plenty big. It's at least plenty tall. And that looks pretty perfect. Okay, so I have plenty of excess on the top and the bottom, so let me go ahead and cut a little bit of that off. All right, that's better. All right, hopefully I got it wide enough. It's going to be pretty tight. We'll see. All right, I forgot my heat tape. Let me grab that. And this little tumbler holder that I made also comes in handy. All right, I'm going to tape this the way I always do. And so if you have questions about that, I do have several videos where I've shown how I tape it and why I do it that way. Well, I'll still explain it here, but if you want to go back and watch any of those, you might get more information. Okay, I am really nervous that there's going to be a white streak, but we're going to keep going. If there is, it's my fault and not the fault of the tumbler or the press or anything like that. All right, I didn't use any glue on that, so that just came apart. So I put a piece of tape in the middle, and then I stick it to the piece of the paper that's on top, and then while I'm pulling my paper really tight, press that down. I want to make sure I have the whole top covered, which I do. It's barely above the top of that, and that's exactly what I want. So I'll do the same thing right here. Stick it down to the piece on top, squeeze those together, and then press that tape down tightly. Then I can go ahead and wrap this around. Now when I'm doing the top and the bottom, I want the tape to be on the side of the paper that's on top, and it's right here. So I want to pull that way so I'm not pulling those apart. Now a lot of the times I'll use two pieces of tape, one that's even with the top of the tumbler, one that's above it a little ways. I'm going to try to get by with just one piece today. So I'm going to pull that pretty tight. And then I'm going to push straight over and tape it down to the inside. Then at some point in the process, I always like to rub down hard up here and along the seams. You can either do all your taping first or do it like I'm doing it now. I'm going to press on that top piece of paper. Then I'm going to shove it. All right, let's see. Shove it on the bottom piece and press that down too. Okay, I can go ahead and press that straight over since I'm happy with how it is now. And then this side's on top, so I'm going to press or pull that way. So I'm not trying to widen the gap. Okay, so I did that pretty tightly. So now I just go around and press straight in. Now the issue with having your paper too tall, maybe you can kind of see where it bunches up there. That can cause those little white spots. So I probably should have trimmed down the paper just a little bit more, but I think it'll be okay. Okay, let's go ahead and plug this up, press the tumbler, and see how it comes out. So the first thing I need to do is go ahead and press this green button to turn it on. Now you can see the counter's at 1. This will be the first press. I also noticed mine's already set to Fahrenheit. So let's look and see what it's defaulted to. I'm going to press the set button once, and the temperature's at 392. I'm going to go ahead and decrease that to 385. Now I press set again, then it tells me my time. I don't want 60 seconds. I'm going to go for 45. All right, it is heating up, so we'll have to wait for that to heat up. But I did want to let you know the time and temp I'm using is different than what they suggest in the instruction manual. So when you get a new tumbler press, maybe the first time you should use their instructions. I'm going to use something that's worked for me. So when this makes it up to 385, we'll get started. Now that that's up to temperature, what I want to do is I want to take my tumbler and wrap it in either butcher paper, or this is just copy paper or printer paper. Now I'm using HTB Romp paper. I love it. Typically it does not bleed through the backside, but just in case, I really want to protect my press mat. So I'm going to start with my seam either in front or in back. I don't really care which, but that's how I like to start them. And then I just use this as a paper cradle in addition to protecting my heat press. So once you close that, it starts counting down by itself. Now one thing, the way I do these with multiple presses, my counter's probably going to be off. I don't mind that, that's okay. Okay, now I want to rotate this 180 degrees. So if that seam started in the front, you turn it till it's in the back. Now when the timer goes off, I'm going to go ahead and open that, and I'm going to turn it 1/4 of the way. I want the seam at the bottom, so I think the seam's in back, so I'll turn it 1/4 of the way. That way, 10 seconds. So 10 seconds, so I'll stop that at 35. And then now the seam's at the top. 10 more seconds, then I'll take it out. Now I have a ceramic tile here. Let's get that out. I can shut it off since this is the only tumbler I'm doing tonight. And then I'm going to set it out here just to rest. Not very long, just for a minute or so. Okay, this is still extremely hot. Now I did let it cool for about 2 minutes, not on purpose. It just took me about that long to get my camera turned around. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. And then I like to check the bottom first. That way, if it's not done, I can tape it back up, put it back in for just a little bit longer. So in that case, I should have just left the top taped for now. Ooh, I think that looks fine. Oh, that looks better than fine. That is adorable. I love the design. I love the colors. Let's see how I did on the seams. Now sometimes you'll see a white glare. That's the camera light. Now this is cooled down enough I can actually hold it now. I think the top seam looks great. There's the back seam. Remember, I was worried that the paper wasn't quite wide enough and I'd have a white strip, but I don't. And then there's the bottom seam. It rolls around to the bottom of the tumbler just a little bit. I think that turned out great. Now, I appreciate you hanging out with me today. If you want to see one of those mason jars done, I'll do that here within the next few days. But for now, I'm happy with this. I'm happy with the press. So thanks again for joining me, and until my next video, bye-bye.